friend of mine told me once when we started the museum project, he told me that it was mind-blowing to have the opportunity to be with, to talk to interview some of our childhood heroes. That's a little bit who guys like Jim Bagley are. We are talking about guys that, for me, on a personal level, I used to play Cabal in the arcade machines. So we're talking about the guy that did the conversion to Spectrum, other games, Midnight Resist, and so many others. We'll be talking about all of that. But so having the opportunity to have people like him with us, I think it's very special. And when, on top of that, they're also very nice guys, very friendly, with a huge heart, it makes it even special. So, Jim, please join us on stage and let's talk for a while. Both me and Luis will be interviewing Jim. Let's be very honest, Luis did all the hard work of preparing the interview. So we'll be talking most of the time also to preserve my voice, but I'll try to introduce one or two questions during the discussion. We did have already 2 sessions in our booth from the museum over there about the ZX Spectrum Next. So we will, of course, talk about the ZX Spectrum Next that Jim has been involved, but now we want to focus mostly on your game development career. We will, of course, talk about it, but let's focus 80% of it or 90% in the game development, because I think that's what may benefit more our audience. Okay? Yep. Guys, Luis, please.
Awesome. Thank you, João. Hey, Jim. So we're going to be starting for your early days in the programming. So before that, how your passion for video games started?
I lived on near a seaside resort, and they had arcades there. So for me, it was great because I got to play like arcade games, and I really enjoyed them. Like it was the best thing ever for me because the games are just brilliant. So that was my passion. I loved playing games, and then jumping to go on to when I got to high school, they had computers in, and then they had 1 BBC Micro and 6 Sharp MZ80Ks, and everyone was queuing up to play arcade ports on the BBC, like Pac-Man and Frogger and Defender, and what I would do was, while I was waiting, I was looking at these 6 other computers, the Sharp MZ80Ks, not being used, and they had a programming manual. And I thought to myself, well, if these aren't being used, I could use them and look at the programming manual and see if I can learn how to make a game myself. And so I started typing the things in the book. And the funny thing is, my reason for doing this was, if I could teach myself to program, then I could play games more often. And then if I had a computer at home, I could then play them more often and without paying £10 every 5 minutes to play. So yeah, that really was the start of me wanting to play games, to make games because I enjoyed playing them. As it just, because my family wasn't really rich, so the money that I had to play games, I had to make it last. So the fact that I could teach myself to make games, that would then mean I could play more games without having to pay, and it would save my mum having to keep coughing up with money for me to go to the arcades.
Yeah. Good, thank you, Jim. And at the high school, so apart from having the manual, did you have any support from your teachers?
The teacher was he didn't know anything really. He was basically, they told the headmaster or whatever told them, he said, "You're a maths teacher. You must know how to use a computer, or you're the most likely to know how to use a computer. You teach computers." And so he had to teach himself before teaching us. And because I was a kid, I could soak up the information a lot faster. I would play games I would teach myself to write games during the lunch break, dinner break, and after school, I would do the same again for another hour before they kicked us out. And then what I would do is I would ask the teacher if I could take home the manual so that I could then take it home, read it, make up some more programs ready to take in the next day, and then type them in, obviously. And my mum saw that I had such a passion and drive to do this, so she thought that she would buy me a computer. And at that time, my friends had a Spectrum, and that's what I wanted. So I said, "Can I get a Spectrum?" And she couldn't afford that, so she got a loan and got a ZX81. And I'll leave it there because I think you've got questions on ZX81.
Hey, we have a few related to ZX81.
But I think it's very interesting to realize this thing, which is typical from back then, which is even without having a computer, people were thinking about how can I do it.
Yeah.
So take the book home, prepare, then tomorrow you go and you type it and you see if it works, then go back.
Yeah.
So that's kind of typical from what we've been hearing. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, Luis.
Great. So at that time, I guess you also played your own games, right? You did.
Yeah.
You did test your own games.
Yeah. What I would do when I was making games for when I had the ZX81, I would invite my friend round, and I'd say, "What games do you want to play today?" And he would think up something like Star Wars, and then I said, "Okay, I'll make a Star Wars game." So I'd get a crosshair on the screen, and then I'd get some ships flying around, and you'd have to shoot them, and then we'd be playing that for the rest of the evening. And he enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it because I was programming and making a game, and I was getting to play it, but I was getting to play it with a friend, so it was brilliant.
Yeah, this concept of creating. So what do you want to play today? And let's go.
Wish I could at the time.
Yeah, it's mind blowing also. Very well.
You had any favorite at the time? Were you building with your friends, or it was something that came out from?
The Star Wars one, which is the most memorable, yeah. Because Star Wars the movie and Star Wars is great, and just like I said, being able to make the game for the friend there and then, it was just nice.
Okay.
So at this time you were programming in BASIC, right?
In BASIC, yeah.
Pretty much BASIC, right?
Totally BASIC, yeah. I didn't know machine code at that time.
You didn't know. Yeah, good. But anyhow, you were still in high school, I think.
Yeah, I was still in high school, yeah.
You started to work for Mike Singleton, which was...
Oh, no, I'd left. Basically, as soon as I left, I went to a local computer shop and asked them if there was any local companies that came into the shop.
Oh.
And apparently there was a few. And so I asked them, "Can you get me a phone number?" And they got me a phone number. I phoned them up, asked for an interview, went in, did the interview, and got the job, and started the next day.
And the next day, it was consulting,
Consult computer systems. Doing a game for Mike Singleton.
Oh, good. So there were the guys that were doing games for companies like Melbourne House,
Yeah, they were doing games for Melbourne House.
So how it was with Mike Singleton? Your first game, actually.
Yeah, I know that it was such an honour, a lot of pressure, because Mike Singleton, I don't know how many of you know of him, but he was a legend even back then. So it was a tough one because, you know, straight out of school and into my first job and having to do a game that would be, you know, seen by lots of people because of who the game designer was. So yeah, it was a lot of pressure.
So it was, I guess, it was a small structure as a team. So Mike would do the game design, and you would be doing the whole programming,
Mike did the game design, and gave it to me and said, "There you go." And then he would come back in to the office now and again and have a look. And he was also working on Dark Scepter with one of the other programmers. And I remember when he was working on the fighting scenes for Dark Scepter, and he came into the office, and he's like, I've done it, and he got a sample of the Sword Clash, and he compressed it down to 200 bytes. Okay. And he said, I've got a Sword Clash in 200 bytes, and what he'd done was he went into the garden with 2 spoons and just clanged them together and recorded it. And that was a sword fight.
So, and then you also work in another project that were, you know, quite famous at the time.
Yep.
Could you elaborate a little bit about Roadrunner? It was also a common hit where, you know, it was for Canvas, right? The company?
Yeah, for Canvas, yeah. Published by US Gold.
So what was behind Roadrunner? Because I think that there was something there that you were not happy with it still today, right?
Basically, Roadrunner, the arcade game, US Gold brought an arcade cab to our office, put it in the reception, said, right, there's a game, make that. So we had to, first of all, play it all the way through all of the levels. So we had to be good at playing the games. Luckily, because I grew up by an arcade and everything, at every place I've worked, I've pretty much been one of the best players of the games that we've had to do.
Yeah, you still are. You beat me in every machine there.
Except Mortal Kombat.
Except Mortal Kombat, yeah.
So, yeah, I had to play through the whole of the game, and then I'd have someone filming me play the game, so we could see what was going on the screen, the map layouts, how the enemies reacted on the screen, what they did, like the boulders coming down on and how they bounced on Roadrunner, and how your player character moved and how it reacted, what it did with enemies, what it did with like the background, or like when it gets run over by a truck, what happens, and there's all the different animations, and then we have to like copy that and then put it into the game, and then program it and make sure it all fits in 48K, and with Roadrunner being a massive multi-level game, it ended up being a multi-load. And anyway, the arcade game is very frustrating because it's analog and it sort of moves in like sweeping curves, and the collision on the seed is very thin, and so sometimes you'll miss it even though you actually do hit it. And it was too easy on the Spectrum game to pick up the seed. So just before we were about to ship, I thought I'll try something. I'll try and make it a bit harder so it's more like the arcade game, because it was way too easy. And I thought I'll try and emulate like 3D collision on it so that it's like really close and almost pixel perfect. You have to be on the right pixel to do it. And I got it, but it was way too hard. And then they said, we haven't got time, it needs to ship because we've already got the marketing sorted and everything. It needs to go to the Ablex, which is the tape manufacturing, well, a tape copying place in the UK. And it's got to go, so no, do a build now and we need to get it out. So I was like, I can't, it's got the, no, I can't, it's hard to pick up the thingies. They were like, it's same on the arcade, don't worry about it, let's get it out there. So it went out and it had really tough collision on the picking up the seed, which I totally regret. However, I do still have a copy of the source.
Okay.
Oh.
And I plan to, at some time, when I've finished some of the other games that I've got to do, I'm going to do a
Finally, to
version,
fix it.
finally fix it. So
Yes.
That would be easy right now because we have internet at the time within that,
exactly,
so
yeah,
you
it'd be
cannot
so much
ship
easier, yeah.
tapes to everywhere.
Might not be a day one patch, 40-year patch maybe.
Oh, very good. So, Jim, so at this point, you are already someone with a level of experience, considered a level of experience,
Yeah.
which enabled you to move to a more kind of stabilized company in the industry, special effects company.
Yeah.
They were working for Ocean Software, which was just the biggest publisher.
The two bosses, Paul Finnegan and Joffa Smith, they were both ex-Ocean people. They split off from Ocean to start special effects.
To start their own company.
Yeah.
That's good. So speaking about Jonathan Smith,
Yep.
so the push-scroll technique, which was quite relevant,
Yep.
and you did use this on
used it in Guts.
on Goods, right?
Yeah.
On Goods. Did you learn it from Jonathan or something that you do?
Yeah, he showed me how it worked and how to do it, so I used it on Guts. And I changed it as well, also. I didn't change it for the main game, but the bit where the middle, where you go between levels, there's like a rib cage section. I changed it to do that bit.
Oh, awesome. And well, I guess you at this point, these had a lot of impact going forward in terms of the scrolling games, right?
Yep.
So what do you have to say about it? It did kind of change the scrolling games at this stage?
Yeah. The push scroll was brilliant because it was so fast. Because the Z80 on the Spectrum was quite slow compared to the size of the screen, which was 6K. And to move up that much data around and then put sprites on top of it, it wasn't really fast enough. And this is where one of the places where the terms chasing the raster comes from, because you'd wait for the raster to be past where the screen started, so that you would then start drawing from the top, and you'd be the raster would be like a couple of lines ahead, and you'd be chasing it down the screen. And then when you finish drawing the screen, the map, the background, you would then have to draw the sprites on top of it, but you'd have to draw them fast enough before the next frame comes down, gets drawn. The next raster lines come down. So you'd get your game running at 25 frames a second. Is it 60 here or 50?
25 here.
Yeah, so the games would run at 25 frames a second. And whereas if you don't use the push scroll, because you're drawing with the push scroll, you're drawing direct to the screen, hence chasing the raster. But with other games that don't use the push technique, you have to draw to a back buffer and then copy that back buffer to the screen. But because you draw into that buffer and then copying everything back over, it adds another frame. So you end up running about 12.5 frames a second, or like about 16 frames a second.
So at this time, in the late 80s,
Yep.
There was already a lot of things going around, licensing of movies,
Yes. Movies,
also arcade games.
Yep.
Also there's licensing. So in your case, when you start working for these companies and you had to to build some of these games like Reddit,
Yep.
Cabal, which
Yep.
was an awesome arcade game. Which was for you? What were the challenges that you had
Right,
to build this kind of kind of games?
When we got arcade games to do, usually at this point in time, the arcade games were getting bigger and bigger because the RAM chips and the ROM chips were a lot cheaper around this time than when they first came out because they were really expensive. That's why like the ZX81 only had 1K because it was the RAM was far too expensive. And then as time went on and more were manufactured, it got cheaper and cheaper.
And if you use broken ones, even better, right?
yeah. And so the arcade games had loads of ROMs, and they were big ROMs, so the graphics could be big and colourful and lots of characters in the background tiles and nice big sprites. And so that made it really hard to make a game that would be all of what was in the arcade game and still fit in 48K. So that was the main big challenge.
Oh. And while you were coding for Spectrum, what was the most challenging game you had to work on?
Both Midnight Resistance and Cabal.
Oh.
Well, actually, yes, that and Doom on the Saturn.
Yeah, we'll go there. We'll go there.
You're always coming to that one.
Yeah. But yeah, on the Spectrum, the most awkward ones were Midnight Resistance and Cabal, because I was constantly chasing my tail, running out of memory. Yeah. So I had to squeeze bits out and copy bits from here, there, and everywhere, and reuse bits, and so
constantly optimizing everything to fit.
Yeah, just to save an extra few bytes to then put something else in that would need more memory to then have to do it again.
Yeah. So one thing we didn't mention is that some of these questions we have the contribution also of the Portuguese community, at least from the Spectrum area. So this last one came from a good friend of ours also, Rafael Anita, just for the information of everyone. So we try also to give the opportunity to people, even those that are not here, to be involved. But as we are talking about optimization, and so I've had the opportunity more than wish to be with you in these last days and talk to you quite a few times about this. I did not say in the introduction, but some of the audience may know that Jim holds a Guinness World Record for a conversion of a game for a ZX81. I'm not going to pretend it's the first time I hear about it, so obviously I now know some of the details. But knowing it's a long story, but trying to at least to give the main idea. So we're talking about a port of Dragon's Lair for the ZX81.
Yeah.
So you got the Guinness record in 2017?
Yeah, 2017.
Okay.
Even though I did the game in 2013, I think it was.
Okay.
It took a while.
And so, we would like to know a little bit more also about that.
Yeah. How long have we got to go on that? Because it's a longish story.
It's a world record about optimizing. I'm just joking. You can address the personal context if you want. Yeah.
Okay. In 2012, my daughter had an interest in the Guinness World Record books. She wanted one for Christmas, so we got her one for Christmas, and she absolutely loved it. She read it front to back and back to front, and memorized everything. And she said to me, "Dad, I'd love to be in the Guinness World Records, but I'm not the fastest woman or the strongest woman alive." And so I said to her, "Look, you don't have to be the fastest or the strongest. You just have to do something that hasn't been done, and you can get into it." And then I totally I disregarded that, carrying on with me work and everything and doing stuff, and I'd just finished doing a game called Pac-Manic Miner Man, which was Manic Miner running on Pac-Man hardware. Manic Miner, for those that you don't know, was a very popular, incredibly popular game on the ZX Spectrum. And the reason I chose that game to run on rewrite to work on Pac-Man hardware was because in the 80s, growing up, I loved the arcade games and always wanted to make an arcade game. And during my career, I had ported like Roadrunner, Cabal, Midnight Resistance over to the Spectrum from the arcades, but I'd never got to write an arcade game. And because I'd ported the arcade games to the Specky, I thought, I'll port a Specky game to the arcades.
Okay.
And so I needed, because of the limitations on Pac-Man, surprisingly even more limiting than the Spectrum, you've got 256 8x8 tiles, or characters, for the background, and you've got 64 sprites for being on the screen. Now, you can't change these because these are in ROM. So, like, unlike with the Spectrum, with the falling platforms and everything, like, you couldn't change the screen or anything. It would all have to be done as separate characters. So one tile would then take 8, and you've only got 256 to do all 20 levels. So I had to do some working around, and plus the screen on Pac-Man hardware is rotated 90 degrees, so it's vertical instead of horizontal. So the width of the screen is less than the Spectrum screen. Yep. The Spectrum screen is 32 characters, whereas Pac-Man screen is 28 characters.
And you did that game specifically, now that we're talking about it,
yeah.
You did it out of curiosity or was it?
It was just because I could.
Yeah.
I always wanted to make an arcade game. I found the memory map, so this was now my perfect chance to actually finally achieve that goal.
Out of curiosity, do you know Matthew Smith?
Yes.
You met him?
I actually met him back in the day.
Okay.
Before.
Did he know? Does he know about this?
Yeah,
or
he knows about it now. He's played it and he liked it and everything.
You were finishing a few projects. You did that one, and then that takes us back to the story of the Dragon's Lair.
Yeah. So I did that one. I enjoyed doing it, and so I thought I really enjoyed that. I'll do another game. So I decided what to do. So because I'd started on the ZX81 in BASIC, I thought, because I know machine code, and I always wanted to write a high-res game on the ZX81, because back in the day when it was Miner 49er or something like that, there was a high-res game on the ZX81. I wanted to figure out how to do that, and thankfully we have the internet, so I found how to do it. And then I wrote a driving game again. I enjoyed doing that, and now we finally get to Dragon's Lair. And so when I'd done the racing game, I was talking to a good friend of mine, Andy Spencer, on Skype. On WhatsApp, and I was saying I'd finished the game, and I'm wondering what to do next. And one of the features, I don't know if anyone knows much about the ZX81, but when you used to load off tape, this display would like flicker because it wasn't generating the screen display, just because of the way the hardware is. But because of the ZX Band, which is a recent-ish device that you could plug into the back of your ZX81, which allowed you to load games off SD card, because it uses the PIC chip to load the data off the SD and then feed the Z80 the data when it's requested, it meant that the ZX81 could keep the screen active while it was loading. And because it's on SD card, it loaded very fast. And so I was saying to Andy from RCM, I said, do you reckon it would be able to play a video? And he said, no way, you joke, no way it'll be able to do that. I said, hang on then, give me 5 minutes. So I hung up.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
I hung up. I wrote a quick program to open a file and read it directly to the screen, and then continue just in a loop, reading the rest of the file into the screen until it got to the end of the file. Then it would go back to the beginning again. And then it worked, and I phoned him back within the 5 minutes and said, right, I'm back. Have a look at this. I've put my phone camera pointing at the screen, and he said, oh my God, how the hell have you done that? And to this day, he calls me a witch and tries to burn me. And yeah, he couldn't believe it was done. Admittedly, all he saw was like random pixels on the screen, but it was pixels on the screen, and they were animating and updating from loading from the SD card. So I said, what should we do? And he said, well, we both came to the conclusion that it would be Dragon's Lair is like one of the first of the innovative Laserdisc games. So we said it's got to be Dragon's Lair. To say it was hard is an understatement, because it's not like I was converting a picture, a static picture, because a static picture would have been a hell of a lot easier, because when you're doing a video, a lot of color changes, a lot of brightnesses changes.
Shades.
And I've got to get that into a black or a white pixel. So I then had to figure out a way to, I thought the best way to do it would be to convert it to a grayscale, because that would change it down from 16.7 million colors down to 256 colors that I would have to then convert. And then I thought, well, even that is still too much for a black or white. So I thought, I've got to do a stipple on it. So I used 2 by 2 pixels to make 5 grades of white to black. And then what I would then do is, because it would take too long to convert each image of the animations, I cut it into sequences, and then I would painstakingly watch the video over and over again and just move the values of where the range for the shades were. That's why it took 3 months of evenings and weekends, because I was still doing a full-time job.
Yeah.
And then I eventually got it done. I still wasn't happy, because it was black and white, it still didn't have those. The shades of what was in the background was different to they were the same as the character, so it just looked like a shape rather than 2 shapes kind of thing.
Yep.
So I decided that I needed to do outlines on the characters where the colors changed. Basically, I would put a line around, and then that made a hell of a difference. So then I converted it, did all the videos, and got it working, and it looked brilliant. And then I was again at Play Expo.
Yep.
And I was talking to a friend of mine there, and he had an American friend over, and I showed him it, and he said it was amazing. And he actually knew the guy who owned Digital Leisure, who owned the IP, and he said, do you want me to get you in touch with the guys who own it, and so you can then sell it, because loads of people at the show were asking if they could buy it, and I said, well, it's not my IP, so I can't sell it, because I could give them it away, but they wanted it on an SD card.
Yep.
And a printed SD card, and so I said, well, I can't, because it's not my IP. And then so I took him up on the offer of getting in touch with the guys that own it, And I told him the situation. I said, look, it's a very niche market. It's a ZX81, a computer that came out years ago. There's not many of them left. And not only that, but it needs a Z-Expand, which is an expansion unit that went on the back of it. And there's even less of them. So it's a very niche market of a very niche market. It's not going to be enough sales to pay for a license to actually make the game. But would I be able to sell at cost the games? And he said, yeah, but the only thing that I ask is that you plug the PS3 version and the Xbox version. So I said, yeah, sure. So I put the links to these to the games on the SD card, and then that allowed me to do it. And all this time while I was doing it, I was not even considering that this game was a Guinness World Record or feasible to be a Guinness World Record. And then when I was advertising it on Facebook, someone said, that's got to be the biggest game on the ZX81, hasn't it? And then it hit me. So there it is. There's my chance to show my daughter that if you put your mind to it, do something that hasn't been done before, you can actually get into the Guinness World Records books. When I did the application, it was you could pay £400. No, wait 3 months.
Yeah, you could pay or wait to get it. Yeah.
Pay £400 and have it done in 3 weeks. But I thought, well, I've already waited a long time anyway, yeah. So I'll just wait and save myself £400. And so I waited 3 months, didn't hear anything. I thought, oh, they must be busy. So I waited another month, still nothing. So a message, because on the application, there's like a message board where you can message them. I said, are you doing this or what? As in, are you doing this or are you doing something else? But because it's or what, they could have read it as or what? No, are you doing this or what? Could have come across angry, especially with it being online in text on a server, because there's no emotion in the words. Anyway, I got a response and he said, well, no. And this is the bit that tickled me. He said, because how do you know if in a year or two's time someone will come out with a bigger device to plug into the ZX81 and make a bigger game? And I thought to myself, hang on a minute, isn't the point of a Guinness World Record the fact that it can be beaten? And I just went back and forth with him, and they were like, no. And it was like, but how do we know how big it is? It's like, well, it's 15 meg, or whatever it, I've got the actual byte size as well.
Okay.
It's like 15 meg. I know how big it is. I can measure it. The size of the game is measurable. And they're just coming out with like technically lame excuses as to why.
So it wasn't easy, but
it wasn't easy. And then after about a good few months, I think it was about 5 or 6 months, I sort of give up trying, because it was just like banging my head against the wall. Out of the blue, I got an email off some random guy I'd never met before, never had an email off him before. And he said, hi Jim, are you still doing the application for the Guinness World Record? So I was replying, yes. Well, no, I've given up, because they kept replying. No, sorry, I did answer saying, no, I've given up. And then he emailed me back and said, what you need to do is you need to continue the application and say this and say that, and he gave me a list of things to guide me through it. And then at the end of that email, he said, oh, and by the way, are you the same Jim Bagley that made Batman the Caped Crusader on the Amstrad? And I said, yeah, why? And he said, because I played that game when I was growing up and I absolutely loved it. And I was like, yes, I've got a guy on the inside. So the only reason he actually helped me
Yep.
was because of the game that I'd written like years ago, and which was very nice.
Yes.
And so anyway, I got the game, and then it got the Guinness World Record. But because they do the Guinness World Record book a year in advance, I had to wait till 2017 for it to come out. And then my daughter went to the shops to go and get it. And then, like, when she opened it up, and normally in the Gamers Edition of the Guinness World Records, I don't know if any of you guys, like, have read any of them.
I'm going to search for one for the museum now.
And then the records are usually like a postage stamp size, and with like small text on. But when she opened it up, the Dragon's Lair section was a whole 2-page spread, and like she just filled up when she was like reading it, which makes me fill up even just thinking about it now, and it did. But when I was telling you the other day, and it's just such a proud like dad moment to show your kids you can do something. You just need to like focus and do it.
Thank you, Jim, for that for that detailed process, because it shows. Well, we have a saying in. Well, I don't think it's a Portuguese saying. No, it's not. But everyone in entrepreneurship knows about it, which is to be lucky gives a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I think that's a little bit what you described. I would suggest we move and we can take it to the next section.
Yeah, that's great to understand how things evolve with X81. Thank you, Jim, for clarifying that. So you had programmed for many different languages and for many different systems, right?
Yeah. There's I don't know if you guys have seen on the museum stall. There's a mat on the floor with a load of consoles and computers. I have programmed for 50 of them.
Oh, 50?
50.
50.
Yeah, 50. Yeah.
Oh my God. So it's quite impressive.
Yeah.
And looking for all those systems and the different programming languages, what was the one that you did prefer in terms of the programming language and also the microsystem that you would develop for?
Ooh.
Any favorites there?
There's a few. I love the Spectrum because of its strengths and its many weaknesses. And I love the 68000 because it was a really nice processor. I loved the SH1 on the 32X, which was the Sega Hitachi first combined chip. That was a RISC processor. And then doing the SH2s with the Sega Saturn, but we can go into that later. And I love the fact that the 6809, which was in the TRS-80 and the Dragon and the Vectrex, that was essentially an 8-bit machine, but it had a multiply, which was great.
6809, you said?
No, 6809.
And if I remember well, the QL is 6808, right?
68008.
68008.
Yeah,
okay.
68008.
Okay.
That's an 8-bit version, 8-bit data bus on a 16-bit.
8-bit data bus on a,
16-bit processor. Yeah.
Okay.
So, any advice? This is a question coming from the community, from Ricardo Vicente. He's actually the founder of the ZX community on Facebook in Portugal.
Yeah.
So, one of the questions he asked for you is, for someone that wants to start programming and especially video games, any advice they would give?
I'd say you have to be dedicated is the biggest thing. The games industry is a big market, and if you're going to be working for a company, they have deadlines because they have a marketing team to get the game out, and the marketing team will book in advance a date for that game to come out, so you have to get that game out on time, or you could be like Roadrunner, where it comes out with with a difficult way of getting the seed. So yeah, everything, you'll have deadlines. When you have the deadlines, you'll be working late. They might offer you some pizza as payment. It's a difficult one, but you really need to be able to be focused and have the, when you're learning, like if you go to a school to learn, or a college or a university, don't just be the kind of person that will go in, do the hours of the course, and then come home and do something else. And you need to do it and do it and do it, because there's a lot of people that want to get into the games industry. There's a lot of competition, so you need to be good. And the more you do it, the more you practice, and the better you will get.
Yep.
Also, I would say, when you're making games, if you can make a full game, then that will help show people or companies that you might want to go to that you can do a lot of stuff. Or if you want to just be doing visual effects, or make sure you have some decent demos to show. Always be creative when you're making your games. A lot of mistakes with, not mistakes, but a lot of games that are done by junior people, junior coders or whatever, and artists, they seem to lack movement on the screen, so it seems a bit flat. So I always suggest, like, add a bit of life into the background, add a bit of movement. Another thing, make it clear what the player needs to do. So make it so you can just pick up and play without knowing anything, without being told, without having to sit by someone to say, this is how you play the game. It should be like, oh, there's something that looks different. Do I need to press that button, or do I need to blow a hole in that wall? Do I need to do this? Make it so the player can read the tiny little hints in the background. And one of my main things that I do when I'm making a game is, when I'm doing the gameplay especially, A, make it playable, and B, my biggest thing is never kill the player because of a function in the game, something that is in the game. Like if it's a jump that's a fixed jump, or if it's a game mechanic that some game mechanic that is part of the way it plays, never kill that player because of it. Like if you're doing collisions on spikes on things, make the collisions slightly smaller, so you allow them to stand a little bit on the ledge, but not too close to it.
Yeah.
Things like that. Just think about the player and their experience. Make it a happy experience, because if it gets too frustrating, if you're killing them too much, they're not going to like it. They're going to put it down.
But it's funny that you give that advice, and let me bridge that back to the experience of the Specky.
Yeah.
I think everyone has the idea that the games were very difficult.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, don't be so mean as a coder, and help the player to succeed.
Yeah.
We can take this question and probably now try to look at it from a different angle, and probably distills a little bit next question from Luis. But okay, now from a more technical point of view, in terms of which platform to start, which environment, using an engine, not using an engine, do you think a junior person should start with an engine or not?
Yes. The reason being is it's a lot easier. because all the hardware is taken out. And then that way they can get a game up and running a lot quicker than they could if they were starting from scratch and then having to learn machine code for that particular machine. That way they can, like if they use Unity or Unreal, the engine is taken care of by a team of technicians at Unity or Unreal, and they will make it work on whatever platform you want it to be on, whether it's PC, Xbox, like PlayStation, Switch, or whatever. So you don't need to worry about any of that.
It's an abstraction that simplifies your work.
Which you don't need at the time of learning how to make games.
Okay. So, but what about then? Okay, now not for a junior coder or whatever. Now asking you about how you do it, how you do your stuff.
Yeah.
I imagine that you create your own tool set, engines.
Yeah, over the years I have done, but being a contractor at the moment, I go to different companies to do different things, and each company is different. Obviously, some use Unity, some use Unreal, some use their own engines. So you have
need to adapt to the customer requirements. Yeah. So if Luis allows me, then we can now perhaps go for the for that other example that we were very curious about. So you're known for having ported one of the most famous games, at least. Well, I played it in the PC a lot, Doom, from ID Software, if I remember well. Yep. And so you're known for having ported that for Sega Saturn.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit about that experience with us?
Yeah. Basically, we used to play it a lot.
Sorry, one of our friends asked if you still have nightmares about it or not. It was Pedro.
No, I'm okay. I'm over it now. Yeah. Many moons ago, we used to play it a lot in our lunch break and after work. And one day, the boss came into the office and said, "Jim, you like playing Doom, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "How do you fancy porting it to the Sega Saturn?" And I was like, "Totally, yeah, definitely. Can we?" And so they got the project, and we had to do like a proof of concept. And so I got the first level up and running, and I had it running full screen, full frame rate, and I sent it back to them for approval. Then I got a phone call 3 days later from John Carmack saying, "No, I don't want you doing it like that. I don't want you using the hardware, the graphics hardware. I want you to use the CPU, like on the PC." And so I said, "Are you sure it's going to be slow if I do that?" He said, "Yeah, I don't care. Just get it working like the PC." So I said, "Okay, it's your IP, you're paying for the port, so yeah, we'll do that." Because the PlayStation version had already been ported, we ended up using that version, well, the data set from that version, because the maps and the graphics were too big to be on the 2 meg of RAM that you had on the Saturn and the PlayStation. So the PlayStation version was already compressed, so we used that data set. We got it working and got it shipped and everything. And for good many years, I was thinking, why would somebody kneecap their own IP on the Saturn? I thought, maybe it was just they didn't like Sega or something. I didn't know. It wasn't anything to do with me. I wasn't going to question it, so I left it. And then in 2013, I was at a different event in Warsaw called Retro Revival, and John Romero was there. And he was going to be doing a talk. I was also going to be doing a talk that day. So I said, "Look, John, we're both going to be doing a talk today. Any chance we can grab lunch together?" So he said, "Okay, yeah, sure." So we ended up having lunch and we were chatting about it. I said, look, John, I've got a bit of a bone to pick with you, because like back in the day, I did Doom on the Saturn, sent off the game for approval, and then come back with, no, you can't use the hardware because I had it running full screen, full frame rate. He usually did the approvals because it was his company, and he said that if he'd have seen it running full screen, full frame rate, he usually did them, but on the day they were supposed to be doing the Saturn versions, he was on holiday.
Yeah.
And that's why John Carmack took over. And he said that if he'd have seen it running full screen, full frame rate, he'd have said, get it finished and port it back to the PC.
So we could have a different Doom in the
Could have had a different Doom,
PC.
yeah.
I do know that at least in this is more a personal comment, but so I was with Jim in the UK last year, so
Yep.
and I met John Romero and I started talking with him about the museum, and the only thing he told me was, Spectrum, you need to meet Jim Bagley, and I said, yeah, I know him already. So I think you guys have a good relationship.
We're good
now.
friends, yeah.
Yeah. Very well. So, Luis, time is flying by, so perhaps we can move to the end stream if you agree. So,
if we're all going to move to the end stream section, so end stream has been an awesome platform for the retro gaming. I bought it myself, the live subscription, and been playing lots of games from all different platforms.
Yep.
I've seen that you have been involved in here. Can you elaborate a little bit about what was your role in the end stream project?
In Endstream. My role was reverse engineering all of the games that, well, pretty much 99% of the games that they had, to get the high score out of the game. Find out where the high score was in RAM and how it was stored, and then get it out of the game so that they could put it on the server for the leaderboards. All of the arcade games, there's Commodore games, there's Specky games, there's Amstrad
Amiga,
games,
Commodore,
Amiga, the ST. No, every processor that you can think of, that was even some that you can't think of, like Mortal Kombat. That's a strange processor. But yeah, all of them, I actually had to follow the code and work out how to find a way of getting the high score, finding where it was, and reporting it to the game in real time.
Is there any plans for expansion about the platform in terms of the portfolio, the feature set that we have there? Because we have a lot of features apart from playing, like challenges and.
Yeah. The challenges were good. For me, the challenges were the best part because it put a different skew on playing the game, so it made it really worthwhile. Getting on stream because of the challenges. As for expanding on it, I don't know what they're going to be doing because I haven't been with them for a couple of years now. So.
Let's try to be very brief, but I don't want to skip this section because we have some questions here also from friends. So let's talk a little bit about the next.
Yeah.
The next is a recent Spectrum computer that with the name Sinclair, with Rick Dickinson's design, a project that started in Brazil and then eventually, and I'm sure you can share how you got involved. And so I would focus on what was your role on the next, which games you developed for it or contributed for it. And then perhaps we can just make one or two very brief questions on this part.
Okay. I got involved quite early on.
Yeah.
When Enrique first announced it at Play Expo. Well, obviously they'd been at it a couple of years prior to that. We're doing the first board and getting it to the point where they thought of taking it to a Kickstarter. My role initially, wasn't really a role. It was, I was just making what I thought would be useful for the platform.
Yep. Yeah,
I
not role,
wasn't- I wasn't-
contribution. It was
yeah,
more in the sense
I
of
wasn't
what...
part of the team then.
Yep.
It was only like when the stuff that I did became really popular that Enrique sort of added me to the team.
But more on a technical front. So, and we had the opportunity to talk about this in the afternoon also. But you told us about what probably makes it harder for people that were or wanted to be coders, and to do the shift for the machine code and all that.
Yeah.
So,
Basically, while I've done talks and things and in emails, people have mentioned to me that they wrote games in BASIC and back in the day, but they never got to do machine code, and they would love to know how to, and they also would love to know how to get sprites on the screen, move them around smoothly, and scroll the screen. And to be honest, the way the screen is laid out in memory is a nightmare to find a particular pixel on screen. So to draw a sprite on the screen and get it to move across like horizontally is an absolute nightmare if you've never done it before, and especially if you're learning machine code, because you've got to do so many bit shifting and masking and ORing, and you need to know what you're doing. It's you need to know what the challenges that you need to do what it is just to get the sprite on. So it, like I say, it's an impossible task almost for a newcomer. So I wanted to make it so that it was something that you could just do with very little effort. So I thought, because when it was announced by Enrique, it was initially just a Spectrum clone with an SD card so you can load your games faster, and it had a Raspberry Pi as an accelerator, so you could do whatever you wanted to do.
Probably
with the Pi.
to get the HDMI.
Yeah, to get the HDMI, so it would read the screen on the Spectrum RAM. And then, so I enhanced it and added hardware sprites and added more colors just to make it so it could move a sprite around the screen quite easily with poking a few values. And then it wasn't until a bit later on that when a guy called Gary Lancaster, who wrote Next Basic, was updated, continuing doing the Next Basic, and I sort of badgered him so much to say, begged him, like, Gary, I need a big favour. Can I convince you enough to add the sprite features and some of the next extended features into Next Basic? And that was the start of what was a huge game changer for the Next, because not only did he add the features, but he took it to another level, and it was awesome, because now not only could you write stuff in BASIC, you could have stuff on the screen that could move smoothly all around the screen, and it was written in BASIC. And if you remember the Spectrum and any games that were written in BASIC back in the day, they were slow and sluggish, but now it is like super smooth, faster than games that were written in machine code back in the day, which in itself is like mind-blowing. These are games that are written in BASIC. But not only that, but people were being like so creative in the games that they were doing with the BASIC, and they were running.
It opens a new world and brings many programmers back.
Yeah, and then when we actually shipped the first set of Kickstarter Nexts, it really took off big time, because there was so many people that were doing stuff in BASIC that you could never possibly imagine in a million years that could even be done.
If anyone wants to code for a machine like the Spectrum and knowing that this next is retro-compatible, so you can make usage of this, these new features in the next BASIC, which makes life simpler for programmers. Jim, you're also involved in a few games. I knew Beggars in Space, Warwalk. Luis told me about Scramble. Any others?
Basically, I started doing, because Scramble was done, I wanted to do some more arcade games. So I wrote Pac-Man emulator, but it wasn't like an emulator, it was more a running Pac-Man on the Spectrum Next natively.
Okay.
So it was using the ROMs that were only changed very slightly to stop it doing out into different ports, and then we would have the interrupt every 50th of a second, or every 60th of a second, because we set it to 60 frames a second. It would interrupt the game and then take where the Pac-Man hardware expected the screen, take the data from there, rearrange it into the way the Spectrum Next is laid out for the tile map screen, and then we'd grab the sprites from where they were on Pac-Man hardware and copy them to where they are on the Next, and then it would then go back for the next frame and then just keep doing it. So when the code is running when the code is running from the ROMs of the Pac-Man hardware, it thinks it's running on Pac-Man.
Okay.
Because it's not emulated, it's running, each instruction is being run by the FPGA, well, the CPU on the FPGA.
We were talking about your games. I do have a question about another person's game, and I know it's a friend. So the question is, and you'll know where it comes from.
Yeah, I know.
Have you played Saboteur for the ZX Spectrum Next?
I have played Saboteur for the Spectrum Next. Yes.
You liked it?
He said, yeah, he's done a good job.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we can say 5,000. What the answer was.
I did. We have sort of hinted to him to when he's doing Saboteur 2, to use the hardware sprites and make it smoother.
Okay.
And it should look even better.
Okay.
But it already looks good already because like he's coloured it all up, but just that little bit extra.
So there's open things to take care.
Yeah.
So long career, started as a bedroom coder.
Yep.
We abusively well, not you deserve it, but without your permission, we said we called you an industry legend, which you are.
Thank you.
In my humble opinion. Any message about all this career? Any best moment you remember, or anything you want to highlight?
The best times are now, or have been in the past?
I've been very lucky in my career because I've got to do a lot of really good games. And I've enjoyed them all. I've got to work on a lot of great machines, and I've enjoyed them all.
And
many. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm
so
thankful.
It's more the journey, not the specific.
Oh yeah. It's more the journey.
Very well.
I love challenges, and a lot of it has been challenges, and I love learning new things. Okay. So being able to go across all of those different machines, and it's been really an enjoyable journey.
Very well. Thank you, Jim, for the journey, because we benefit from it as gamers. Thank you for sharing it with us here. And I think this is it. Wish, I don't know if you want to add something.
No, I think that's going to be all for today. And thank you, Jim,
Okay,
so
my
much
pleasure.
for sharing with us the whole history. It's part of us.
Yeah.
You have made a lot of stuff that made us happy, and not just us in
And
here, but
it's an inspiration for both gamers and coders, so thank
Yeah.
you for that.
My pleasure.
Well, thank
I've
you.
enjoyed it.
thank you.
Thank you.